All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric, from a men's point of view, and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium: grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium: arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace, women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendis et. Behavioral Psychology, Frame, Fortitude, and Extinction of Failure. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. Buy on Amazon link. https://www.amazon.com. Behavioral Psychology, Fortitude, Extinction, Reinvention, ebook DP-B0F4Q2Z349. Behavioral Psychology, The Practical Anatomy of a Modern Delusion. I once watched a competent engineer ask about the cost of bathroom signage and get destroyed. Not refuted, not countered, destroyed. The weapon was a single word, problematic, deployed like a curse by medieval clergy against a heretic who'd noticed the cathedral's foundation was cracking. That word is not an argument. It's a thought-terminating cliché, a spell cast by those who cannot survive rational scrutiny. The committee members who wielded it weren't seeking truth. They were performing loyalty rituals to secure their own status. The swamp of their moral posturing grows thicker with every cycle. Each accusation breeding, more accusations. Each purity test breeding, more tests. Until the institution drowns in its own performative righteousness while producing nothing of value. But here's what most men miss. This spectacle is not merely something to endure or mock. It is a developmental pressure cooker that can force your assent or consume you entirely. The man who crumbles before the label confesses his dependency on external validation. The man who merely sneers from the sidelines remains trapped in reactive resentment. The man who uses the experience to sever his need for their approval, that man ascends. He recognizes the inquisitors as frightened children playing with conceptual matches, and he walks away with his agency intact, his logic sharper, and his mission clarified. The Hydra reveals its mechanisms only when it attacks. Study the teeth, and you learn the anatomy of the beast you must transcend. Theory under examination, weaponizing vague terms like problematic to censor dissent. Developmental arrest situation. A mid-level corporate DEI manager convenes a town hall to address a junior male employee's question about the administrative cost of new gender-neutral bathroom signage. Instead of addressing the fiscal or logistical argument, 3 senior staff members immediately label him problematic. The term is deployed not as a critique of his logic, but as a social death sentence. The debate shifts from the substance of the policy to the moral character of the questioner. The situation grows swampier as competing factions weaponize the label to secure institutional loyalty, punish dissent, and consolidate power without offering falsifiable criteria. The man who asked the question is quietly sidelined, his career trajectory stalling, while the label bearers perform moral superiority, trapped in a loop of performative virtue that masks their own intellectual laziness. Core contradiction. The left claims to champion free inquiry and open-mindedness, yet it enforces a rigid orthodoxy where dissent is punished, not by counter-argument, but by social exile via untestable labels like problematic. Integral Development Map, Behavioral Psychology, Frame, Fortitude, and Extinction of Failure Appendix. the compact integral development map 1. Wilbur, a call-stuck pattern. Fragmentation over indexing on subjective feelings or objective metrics while ignoring the structural grammar of reality. Higher stage correction. Integral quadrant integration. Synchronizing interior depth with exterior measurable output. Advice. Ground your sovereignty in layered competence. Let your physical frame and material output be the ironclad proof of your inner alignment. 2. Piaget stuck pattern. Concrete operational binary, categorizing the world into simple ally-enemy camps without the capacity for abstraction. Higher stage correction. Formal operational mapping, tracing second and third order consequences across complex systems. Advice: stop reacting to isolated symptoms. Map the entire architecture of the problem before striking. 3. Kohlberg stuck pattern. Conventional conformity, defining morality by the mob's approval and fearing the tribunal's social exile. Higher stage correction. Post-conventional principle, anchoring justice in natural law, duty, and objective truth. Advice: carve your code into bedrock. Let the crowd's weathering critique shatter against your geological patience. 4. Keegan's stuck pattern. Socialized mind, outsourcing identity to institutions, spouses, or the algorithmic herd. Higher stage correction. Self-altering mind, becoming the conscious architect of your own values, boundaries, and narrative. Advice: draft your own constitution. Obey your internal sovereign, not the external audience. 5. Erickson's stuck pattern. Stagnation, consuming resources, hoarding trivial comforts, and producing nothing that outlasts the self. Higher stage correction. Generativity, building systems, mentoring successors, and fathering the future. Advice: plant orchards whose shade you will never sit in. Your worth is measured solely by the structural integrity of what you leave standing. 6. Freud's stuck pattern. Superego tyranny. Internalized cultural censors, punishing natural masculine ambition with fabricated guilt. Highest stage correction, ego mastery, mediating between raw impulse and civilized duty with stoic neutrality. Advice: silence the inner critic. Let your conscious will act as the forge that tempers instinct into purpose. 7. Jung stuck pattern, shadow projection and anima possession, blaming external demons for internal fractures while seeking external validation to fill the void. Higher stage correction. Individuation, integrating the dark triad of your own nature and internalizing the feminine to become psychologically whole. Advice: walk into the abyss of your own character. Slay the dragons of your weaknesses before attempting to order the world. 8. Adler stuck pattern. Inferiority compensation, seeking status, revenge, or false applause to mask a hollow core. Higher stage correction. Superiority via contribution, striving for measurable competence and service to the truth. Advice: build your foundational value so densely that the mob's paper labels simply oxidize and fall away. 9. Leuwinger, Cook, Grutter stuck pattern. Conscientious conformism, rule following, checklist moralizing, and obsessing over social image. Higher stage correction, autonomous awareness, embracing paradox, tolerating ambiguity, and acting from integrated selfhood. Advice: outgrow the desperate need to be perceived as right. Cultivate the silent, crystalline capacity to simply be true. 10. Graves' spiral dynamic stuck pattern, pluralistic relativism, trapped in an egalitarian flatland where all values are deemed equal, resulting in zero order. Higher stage correction, integral synthesis, coordinating multiple value systems without losing a central vertical axis of excellence. Advice: hold the center amidst the chaos. Let your mission be the lodestar that cuts through the fog of degenerate equality. 11. Maslow stuck pattern, deficiency fixation, endlessly chasing safety, belonging and esteem as if comfort were the ultimate destination. Higher stage correction, self-transcendence, sacrificing the ego to a telos infinitely larger than personal appetite. Advice: stop scavenging for scraps of comfort. Ascend the mountain and answer the call that demands your ultimate sacrifice. 12. Fowler's stuck pattern, synthetic conventional faith, borrowing beliefs wholesale from the dominant cultural zeitgeist without testing. Higher stage correction, individuative reflective faith, forging a creed through the fire of experience, logic, and divine reason. Advice, purify your spiritual inheritance through the acid of honest doubt. Let your faith be forged steel, not inherited rust. 13. Commons stuck pattern, hierarchical complexity collapse, unable to coordinate abstractions, falling back into factional grievance and bureaucratic bloat. Higher stage correction, systemic coordination, designing institutions that scale competence, reward contribution, and enforce due process. Advice, build functional hierarchies, not egalitarian labyrinths. Measure men strictly by what they produce and protect. 14. Yubzer stuck pattern, mental structural fragmentation, viewing reality through fractured linear causality, blind to the living whole. Higher stage correction, integral presence, perceiving reality as an unconditioned, transparent field where past, present, and divine purpose converge. Advice, stand unshaken in the luminous present. Be the fixed point of clarity around which the chaos of modernity swirls. 15. The trivium stuck pattern, grammar failure, allowing undefined terms, weaponized language, and rhetorical fallacies to bypass logic and dictate reality. Higher stage correction, trivium mastery, defining reality relentlessly, testing it rigorously, and articulating it with irrefutable force. Advice, guard your vocabulary like a fortress. What you define clearly, you command entirely. Case vignette, the case of the problematic spreadsheet, a vignette of institutional possession. The fluorescent lights hummed with the sterile indifference of a surgical ward. Recycled air circulated through the mid-level conference room of Helios Vantage Solutions, a Fortune 500 logistics firm that had, over the previous decade, metastasized a diversity, equity, and inclusion apparatus rivaling the size of its actual operations division. Marcus Webb, Director of Inclusive Culture, a title that had materialized from the administrative void approximately 3 years prior, unbidden, like a mushroom after rain, stood at the head of the table. Behind him, a projection screen displayed a slideshow titled Belonging at Work, Our Collective Journey FY 224. The word journey was not accidental. It implied movement without destination, effort without measurement, pilgrimage without shrine. The town hall had been convened to address the rollout of new gender-neutral bathroom signage across Helios Vantage's 14 North American offices. Marcus, a man of 42 whose beard was meticulously groomed into the precise configuration that signaled approachable authority per the style guides of coastal managerial culture, had prepared a 20-minute presentation. It included testimonials from employee resource groups, a land acknowledgement, and a slide featuring stock photography of diverse hands holding a potted plant. The symbolism was not accidental either. The plant represented growth. The hands represented community. The potted container represented containment, managed, controlled, unable to spread beyond its ceramic boundary. At minute 18, Marcus opened the floor for questions. Leo Harmon raised his hand. Leo was 26, junior operations analyst. Finance degree from a state university, student loans still accumulating interest. Recently engaged to a woman who worked as a dental hygienist. He had been at Helios Vantage for 11 months. He had been invited to the town hall because attendance was mandatory for all staff below director level. He sat in the third row beside a woman from accounting who had been weeping quietly since the land acknowledgement, and a man from IT who was checking fantasy football scores beneath the table. "Hi, Marcus. Thanks for the presentation." A pause. The room's ambient trust level fluctuated. "I had a question about the cost projections for the signage retrofit. I was looking at the budget summary that went out last week, and it looked like the projected cost was around $3,000, $40,000 across all offices. But when I ran the numbers based on the vendor quotes we have on file for standard ADA compliant signage, the material cost should be closer to $85,000. Is there a breakdown available for the remaining delta? I'm just trying to understand the administrative overhead." Leo Harmon had made a category error. He had believed he was in a room where questions were questions. I, the grammar of exile. Let us define our terms with the precision the moment demands. Problematic, adjective. From the Greek problematikos, meaning pertaining to a problem, itself derived from problema, that which is thrown forward or put forth, from pro forward and balein to throw. In its original usage, a problem was an obstacle to be examined, a puzzle to be solved through the application of reason. The problematic was that which invited inquiry. It was an intellectual category, not a moral one. In the modern institutional dialect, the word has undergone a semantic inversion so complete it would have made George Orwell adjust his monocle. Problematic no longer means worthy of investigation. It means deserving of excommunication. It is not a description of an argument's logical status, but a verdict on the speaker's moral standing. To be problematic is to be personally flawed in a way that precludes further engagement. The word is a thought-terminating cliché, a rhetorical guillotine that severs the head of inquiry from the body of discourse before evidence can be heard. The etymological journey from a thing to be examined to a person to be avoided is not accidental. It is the natural trajectory of any language captured by an ideology that substitutes status for truth. Within 4 seconds of Leo's question, 3 senior staff members, none of whom had prepared any budget analysis, all of whom had been nodding along to the slideshow with the synchronized rhythm of dashboard bobbleheads, spoke nearly in unison. "I find that question problematic," said Danielle from Human Capital Optimization. "That's a problematic framing," said Kendrick from Supply Diversity. "We need to be mindful of asking problematic questions in a shared space," said Priya from Belonging and Community Engagement. The room's temperature did not change. The fluorescent lights did not flicker, but a boundary had been drawn, invisible and absolute, and Leo Harmon now stood outside it. Notice what happened grammatically. Leo asked about numbers, 340,000 versus 85,000. The response addressed not the numbers, but the question itself. The question was not incorrect. It was not inaccurate. It was problematic. The adjective migrated from the realm of fact to the realm of moral hygiene. One does not refute a problematic question. One quarantines it. This is the first principle of institutional possession, the substitution of epistemic categories with moral categories. A question about administrative overhead becomes an inquiry into the questioner's soul. The debate shifts subtly, instantaneously from "is this cost justified" to "is this person safe?" The answer, by the definition now operative, is always no 1-2, the logic of self-refutation. Let us formalize the argument Helios Vantage's culture implicitly asserts. Major premise: institutions committed to inclusion must foster environments where all perspectives are welcomed and no one feels excluded from participation. Minor premise: Leo Harmon's perspective that the signage budget warrants fiscal scrutiny caused 3 senior staff members to feel that the environment was unsafe. Conclusion: therefore, Leo Harmon's perspective must be excluded in order to preserve inclusion. This is not a paradox, it is a performative contradiction. The conclusion negates the major premise by enacting the very exclusion the premise forbids. Inclusion, defined as the welcoming of all perspectives, cannot survive contact with a perspective that challenges the cost of inclusion. The ideology devours its own tail. Now consider the inverse. Major premise: a functional institution allocates resources based on falsifiable criteria: cost, benefit, efficiency, measurable outcomes. Minor premise: the 3-4,000 signage budget, when scrutinized, revealed a 2,500 and 5,000 discrepancy between vendor costs and allocated funds. Conclusion: therefore, the budget warrants scrutiny. This syllogism does not self-refute. It does not depend on the moral character of the questioner. It does not require knowledge of Leo Harmon's intentions, feelings, or social location. It requires only that numbers be numbers and that discrepancy imply investigation. The first syllogism collapses upon inspection. The second endures, which does your institution use 3? The swampier the norm, the deeper the sinking. Over the following 6 weeks, the situation grew swampier. This word imprecise, visceral, perfectly calibrated to the experience of watching institutional logic dissolve into primordial muck, deserves a moment of attention. A swamp is not a lake. It does not have a clear bottom or a visible shore. It is an ecosystem of decay where solid ground is indistinguishable from sinkhole, where every step forward risks submersion, and where the creatures that thrive are those adapted to low oxygen environments. Helios Vantage became swampier by the day. Danielle from Human Capital Optimization scheduled a follow-up meeting to process the impact of the town hall incident. No one defined incident. No one clarified what impact meant or how it would be measured. The meeting produced a document titled Recommendations for Fostering Financial Literacy in an Equitable Framework. The document's contents were irrelevant. Its function was to demonstrate that the institution had responded to the problem without specifying what the problem was or what response entailed. Kendrick from Supplier Diversity sent an all-staff email reminding colleagues that questions about resource allocation should be directed through appropriate channels in a manner consistent with our values. The word values did heavy lifting. What were the values? Unclear. How did Leo's question violate them? Unspecified. What were the appropriate channels? The Budget Committee, presumably, which Leo had not been informed, was the exclusive venue for fiscal inquiry, and which had not, in any case, been convened. Priya from Belonging and Community Engagement organized an optional mandatory workshop on courageous conversations about money and power. The workshop was facilitated by an external consultant who charged $8,000 for a half-day session and whose credentials included a certificate in somatic abolitionism and a Substack with 43 subscribers. The consultant led the group through an exercise where participants were instructed to write down their relationship with scarcity on index cards and then place the cards in a bowl. The cards were burned. The burning was described as release. Leo Harmon's question about $255,000 was never answered. Leo Harmon himself was not fired. That would have been problematic, too legible, too actionable, too clearly retaliatory. Instead, he was sidelined. His quarterly review, previously on track for a meets expectations rating, was downgraded to needs improvement in collaborative communication. His request to transfer to the pricing analytics team was denied on the grounds that his current team would be destabilized by his departure. He was not invited to the next town hall. His name appeared on no new project assignments. He continued to receive a paycheck. He continued to occupy a desk. He had become, in the institutional vocabulary, a ghost, present enough to justify the payroll, absent enough to pose no threat to the narrative. This is the second principle of institutional possession. Capture operates through ambiguity, not annihilation. The guillotine is too clean. The swamp is more effective. You do not execute the heretic. You submerge him slowly, incrementally, until he cannot point to any single moment when the water rose above his chin, and therefore cannot complain that he is drowning. The RV, the anatomy of developmental arrest. What is happening inside the institution? What psychic mechanism produces this behavior in intelligent, educated adults who would, in any other context, describe themselves as reasonable people? The answer is developmental arrest. Consider the developmental trajectories identified by a century of psychological research. John Piaget described the progression from sensory-motor intelligence through pre-operational and concrete operational stages to formal operational reasoning, the capacity to think abstractly, to hold multiple variables in mind, to reason about systems rather than merely objects. Lawrence Kohlberg mapped moral development from pre-conventional obedience, avoid punishment, seek reward, through conventional conformity, maintain social approval, follow rules, to post-conventional principled reasoning, justice, rights, universal standards. Robert Kegan traced the evolution of the self from the imperial mind, needs and desires, through the socialized mind, defined by others' expectations, to the self-authoring mind, internal value system, and beyond. At each stage, the achievement of the previous stage is a necessary foundation, but an insufficient destination. The child who has mastered concrete operations can solve arithmetic problems, but cannot yet reason algebraically. The adolescent at Kohlberg's stage 3 can be good by the group's standards, but cannot yet articulate why those standards are just. The adult with a socialized mind can function in an organization, but cannot critique the organization's premises without experiencing existential vertigo. The staff of Helios Vantage are arrested, not morally, not intellectually in the raw sense. Danielle holds a master's degree. Kendrick passed the CPA exam. Priya speaks 3 languages. They are arrested developmentally in the specific domain of moral reasoning and self-structure. Their framework operates at the conventional level. The fundamental question guiding their cognition is not, is this true or is this just, but will my group approve of this? The problematic label is not an argument, it is a loyalty test. To apply it is to demonstrate alignment. To question it is to reveal oneself as unsafe. The problematic label functions as a thought-stopping cliché, a phrase that terminates inquiry by wrapping the target in a cloud of vague moral urgency. No one can define it. No one needs to. Its power lies precisely in its undefinability. If problematic had a fixed, falsifiable meaning, it could be tested and therefore potentially refuted. By remaining liquid, by swelling to encompass any dissenting utterance, it becomes unrefutable and therefore within the framework of arrested cognition, undeniable. This is not conspiracy in the sense of a smoke-filled room where Danielle, Kendrick, and Priya coordinate their timing. It is something more dangerous, emergent ideological possession. They do not decide to call Leo problematic. They reflexively deploy the label because their developmental arrest has made them incapable of processing his question through any other framework. He has questioned the cost of the sacred project. The sacred project defines their status. Therefore, he has attacked their status. Therefore, he is a threat. Therefore, he is problematic. The syllogism of the arrested mind writes itself, v. the masculine response, from gamma to Sovereignge. What should Leo Harmon have done? What should any man do when confronted by a system that has abandoned truth for loyalty testing, that has replaced argument with excommunication, that has made of language a trap rather than a tool? The answer is not rage, though rage is appropriate. The answer is not retreat, though retreat is tempting. The answer is development. Leo, in the taxonomy of masculine development, is at a crossroads. He entered the situation as a functional contributor, a man whose identity was tied to his role, whose value was measured by his compliance, whose instinct was to ask reasonable questions and expect reasonable answers. He is, in the language of the archetype, a builder in training, competent, literal, sincere, unprepared for the possibility that the blueprints he has been given are for a building no one intends to construct. The encounter with the swamp is his crucible. Every initiatory tradition in the Western canon, from the descent of Odysseus into Hades to the 40 days of Christ in the desert to the alchemical Nigredo, where the base material is dissolved before it can be, Transformed recognizes that masculine development requires a confrontation with chaos, a period of disorientation, and a rebuilding of the self on foundations deeper than social approval. Leo's task is not to win the argument with Danielle. He cannot win it. The framework in which she operates does not recognize the category win. It recognizes only aligned and problematic. His task is to transcend the framework entirely. This requires a sequence of internal operations. 1. Recognize the label as a social tool, not a truth. Problematic is not a fact about Leo. It is a strategic move in a status game Leo did not agree to play. The moment he internalizes it as a description of his character, he has lost. The moment he sees it as a data point about the system's incentives, he has begun to win. 2. Detach ego from institutional approval. Leo's distress is not caused by the label itself, but by his investment in the institution's good opinion. If he valued his own assessment of his work more than Danielle's assessment of his character, the label would sting but not wound. The shift from external to internal locus of evaluation is the foundational move of masculine sovereignty. 3. Separate harm from offense. Leo asked a question about numbers. He did not insult anyone. He did not question anyone's identity. He did not threaten anyone's safety. He offended people who have trained themselves to experience fiscal scrutiny as personal injury. The institution has collapsed the distinction between harm, actual damage, and offense, feelings of discomfort. Leo must hold the distinction firm. Their feelings are their responsibility. 4. Build in silence. The institution will not reward Leo's question. It will not promote the man who exposed the 2,500 and 5,000 gap. It will, in fact, quietly bury the gap and hope no one else notices. Leo's path forward is not to litigate, not to crusade, not to become the whistleblower who immolates himself on the altar of transparency. His path is to build competence outside the captured system. Develop skills that the market values. Cultivate relationships with men who judge him by his work, not his alignment. Create a position of leverage from which he can speak truth without begging permission. 5. Integrate the shadow. Leo's rage at the institution is justified. His contempt for the reflexive labelers is earned. But if he becomes rage, if he lets the swamp define him by making opposition to the swamp his identity, he will merely mirror the arrested development he despises. The task is to feel the rage fully, to name the betrayal clearly, and then to choose a course of action that serves his mission rather than his grievance. 6. Develop the internal authority of the judge archetype. The judge does not react, he assesses. He weighs evidence, he applies standards. He is impartial, not because he lacks feeling, but because he refuses to let feeling distort his perception. When Leo can look at Danielle's behavior and see, without hatred and without apology, that it is the behavior of a frightened person clinging to status in a decaying system, he has achieved the clarity of the judge. 7. Become the builder who does not need permission. The ultimate antidote to institutional capture is private competence. The man who can build, fix, create, solve, and produce outside the captured apparatus is the man the apparatus cannot control. Leo should learn to code, to weld, to invest, to write, to lead a team, to fix an engine, to navigate by the stars, anything that connects him to the material world of cause and effect, where problematic is not a category and spreadsheets still add up. Zix, the moral of the swamp. Helios Vantage Solutions still exists. The signage was installed at a cost of $312,280 under budget, a victory for fiscal responsibility that was celebrated in the quarterly newsletter. The external consultant returned for a second workshop, this one on embodied accountability. Attendance was optional, mandatory. Danielle received a promotion. Kendrick moved to a VP role at a competing firm. Priya launched a podcast. Leo Harmon, after 9 months of quiet competence and deliberate withdrawal from institutional politics, received a job offer from a mid-sized logistics company that had not yet discovered the revenue potential of belonging. His new boss was a man named Frank, who had been in the industry for 30 years, who had no LinkedIn profile, and who asked Leo exactly one question during the interview. Can you read a spreadsheet? Leo started 2 weeks later. His salary increased by 15%. His commute decreased by 20 minutes. The new company had gender-neutral bathrooms. They had been installed in 2019, before anyone thought to call them a journey, at a cost of $708,000. Frank had negotiated the vendor contract himself. No one called anyone problematic. The swamp receded, not because it was drained, but because Leo walked out of it and stopped expecting the water to be dry. He did not save Helios Vantage. That was never his job. His job was to save himself, and in doing so to become the kind of man who builds things that do not sink. Maxim for the road: the institution that cannot define its terms cannot defend its claims. The man who does not need its approval cannot be controlled by its labels. Build more than you consume. Speak more precisely than you are spoken to. Leave inheritance, not excuses. The spreadsheet always adds up. The swamp never drains. Choose the spreadsheet. Grow up and wake up. 1. The theory under examination, consider the word problematic. Etymologically, it descends from the Greek problematikos, denoting something pertaining to a question or a task thrown forward. In classical dialectic, a problem was an invitation to resolution, a puzzle demanding the application of grammar, logic, and rhetoric to arrive at truth. Today, the term has been inverted. It is no longer a question thrown forward for examination. It is a verdict thrown backward to shut down examination. The modern ideological apparatus weaponizes vague moral taxonomy to replace empirical verification with social loyalty testing. When an institution declares a man problematic, it is not engaging in reasoned analysis. It is executing a status transaction. The theory under examination is the systematic replacement of objective harm with subjective offense. The mechanism functions by unmooring accusations from measurable reality, deploying portable stigmas to secure institutional alignment, punish dissent, and consolidate bureaucratic power. The grammar of the accusation is intentionally vague. The logic is intentionally absent. The rhetoric is entirely emotional. By substituting external validation for internal sovereignty and performance for substance, the system replaces the search for truth with the enforcement of conformity. 2. The developmental arrest picture a fluorescent-lit corporate conference room. A mid-level director presents a 20-slide deck on belonging, complete with land acknowledgements and stock photography of diverse hands holding a potted plant. A junior analyst asks a simple, concrete question about a $350,000 signage retrofit versus an $85,000 material quote. He expects a spreadsheet. He receives a social death sentence. Senior staff immediately label him problematic. The debate shifts instantly from fiscal logistics to moral character. The man is quietly sidelined. This is not a dispute over policy. It is a developmental arrest. The institution has stalled in concrete operational thinking, categorizing all reality into binary camps of the pure and the impure. Morality is reduced to the mob's approval. The internalized cultural censor punishes natural curiosity with fabricated guilt. The collective shadow, intellectual cowardice, fear of being wrong, hunger for unearned status is projected entirely onto the dissenting man. He becomes the receptacle for everything the system refuses to examine in itself. The institution has replaced truth-seeking with loyalty testing, trapping its members in a loop of performative virtue that masks their total intellectual bankruptcy. 3. The core contradiction of the modern captured institution is entirely self-refuting. The ideology claims to champion free inquiry, open-mindedness, and the elevation of marginalized voices. Yet it enforces a rigid orthodoxy where dissent is punished, not by counter-argument, but by social exile via untestable labels. The syllogism exposes the lie. Premise 1. Truth is discovered through open debate and falsifiable evidence. Premise 2. The institution punishes debate and rejects falsifiability via moral labeling. Conclusion. The institution does not seek truth. It seeks submission. If all perspectives are valid, the label problematic is merely one opinion among many, carrying no objective weight. If the label carries absolute authority, then not all perspectives are valid, and the system operates on rigid hierarchy, not egalitarianism. It cannot sustain its own logic. When a system cannot defend its claims with reason, it defends them with volume. When it cannot measure its output, it measures its purity. It demands absolute openness and absolute conformity simultaneously, resulting in a swamp of bureaucratic bloat masking structural decay. 4. The integral map to navigate the arrest. One must trace the developmental ladder upward. Each stage reveals a different mechanism of capture, and each offers a precise corrective. Wilbur-Akal fixation, fragmentation, over-indexing on subjective feelings or objective metrics, while ignoring the structural grammar of reality. Grow up, integrate quadrants, ground sovereignty in layered competence. Wake up, synchronize interior depth with exterior measurable output. Let your physical frame and material output prove your inner alignment. Piaget fixation, concrete operational binary, categorizing the world into simple ally-enemy camps without the capacity for abstraction. Grow up, formal operational mapping, tracing second and third order consequences across complex systems. Wake up, hold multiple perspectives simultaneously, ask how and why rather than demanding who is right. Kohlberg fixation, conventional conformity, defining morality by the mob's approval and fearing the tribunal's social exile. Grow up, post-conventional principle, anchoring justice in natural law, duty, and objective truth. Wake up, carve your code into bedrock. Let the crowd's weathering critique shatter against your geological patience. Keegan fixation, socialized mind, outsourcing identity to institutions, spouses, or the algorithmic herd. Grow up, self-authoring mind, becoming the conscious architect of your own values, boundaries, and narrative. Wake up, draft your own constitution, obey your internal sovereign, not the external audience. Erikson fixation, stagnation, consuming resources, hoarding trivial comforts, and producing nothing that outlasts the self. Grow up, generativity, building systems, mentoring successors, and fathering the future. Wake up, plant orchards, whose shade you will never sit in. Measure worth by structural integrity, not applause. Freud fixation, superego tyranny, internalized cultural censors punishing natural masculine ambition with fabricated guilt. Grow up, ego mastery, mediating between raw impulse and civilized duty with stoic neutrality. Wake up, silence the inner critic, let conscious will act as the forge that tempers instinct into purpose. Jung fixation, shadow projection and anima possession, blaming external demons for internal fractures while seeking external validation to fill the void. Grow up, individuation, integrating the dark elements of your nature and internalizing the feminine to become whole. Wake up, walk into the abyss of your character. Slay the dragons of your weaknesses before attempting to order the world. Adler fixation, inferiority compensation, seeking status, revenge, or false applause to mask a hollow core. Grow up, superiority via contribution, striving for measurable competence and service to the truth. Wake up, build foundational values so densely that the mob's paper labels oxidize and fall away. Leuvinger, Cook-Gruder fixation, conscientious conformism, rule-following, checklist moralizing, and obsessing over social image. Grow up, autonomous awareness, embracing paradox, tolerating ambiguity, and acting from integrated selfhood. Wake up, outgrow the desperate need to be perceived as right. Cultivate the silent, crystalline capacity to simply be true. Graves' spiral dynamics fixation, pluralistic relativism trapped in an egalitarian flatland where all values are deemed equal, resulting in zero order. Grow up, integral synthesis, coordinating multiple value systems without losing a central, vertical axis of excellence. Wake up, hold the center amidst the chaos. Let your mission be the lodestar that cuts through the fog of degenerate equality. Maslow fixation, deficiency fixation, endlessly chasing safety, belonging, and esteem as if comfort were the ultimate destination. Grow up, self-transcendence, sacrificing the ego to a telos infinitely larger than personal appetite. Wake up, stop scavenging for scraps of comfort. Ascend the mountain and answer the call that demands your ultimate sacrifice. Fowler fixation, synthetic conventional faith, borrowing beliefs wholesale from the dominant cultural zeitgeist without testing. Grow up, individuative reflective faith, forging a creed through the fire of experience, logic, and divine reason. Wake up, purify your spiritual inheritance through the acid of honest doubt. Let your faith be forged steel, not inherited rust. Commons fixation, hierarchical complexity collapse, unable to coordinate abstractions, falling back into factional grievance and bureaucratic bloat. Grow up, systemic coordination, designing institutions that scale competence, reward contribution, and enforce due process. Wake up, build functional hierarchies, not egalitarian tangles. Measure men strictly by what they produce and protect. Gibbs fixation, mental structural fragmentation, viewing reality through fractured, linear causality, blind to the living whole. Grow up, integral presence, perceiving reality as an unconditioned, transparent field where past, present, and divine purpose converge. Wake up, stand unshaken in the luminous present. Be the fixed point of clarity around which the chaos of modernity swirls. The trivium fixation, grammar failure, allowing undefined terms, weaponized language, and rhetorical fallacies to bypass logic and dictate reality. Grow up, trivium mastery, defining reality relentlessly, testing it rigorously, and articulating it with irrefutable force. Wake up, guard your vocabulary like a fortress. What you define clearly, you command entirely. 5. What men can learn from the dysfunction, the institutional swamp, mirrors the male psychological trap. The modern man is captured not by force, but by the slow erosion of his frame. He is taught to seek approval, to avoid conflict, to outsource his judgment to algorithms and authorities. He becomes a provider without a purpose, a warrior without a perimeter, a magician without a craft. The dysfunction teaches us that the dragon to be slain is not the bureaucracy. It is the boy within who still believes that compliance will earn him safety. The kingdom to be restored is the inner household. Thumos under logos, strength in service, mercy after justice, beauty after discipline. The man who masters this does not need the institution's blessing. He builds his own. 6. Grow-up development is not a linear ascent. It is a spiral of repeated initiation. To grow up is to accept that suffering is curriculum, not punishment. Locate your stage honestly. If you are still seeking the mob's approval, stop negotiating with it. If you are still projecting your shadow onto the system, stop blaming external structures for your own unexamined wounds. Build competence in a tangible skill. Let your body and bank account speak louder than your words. Practice stoic emotional neutrality. Observe the label, do not internalize it. Cultivate generativity. Mentor younger men. Build structures that outlast your tenure. Anchor your morality in post-conventional principle. Define justice by natural law, not by the trending consensus of a terrified herd. 7. Wake-up awareness precedes transformation. Begin with daily shadow integration. Journal your triggers. Own your blind spots. Stop outsourcing blame. Recognize that the enemy you hate in the institution is often a disowned part of yourself. Conduct daily truth audits. Question one core assumption you hold. Practice silent contemplation. Spend time in silence to hear your own voice above the algorithmic noise. Track meaningful coincidence. Let outer events mirror your inner state and adjust your course when patterns repeat. Distinguish harm from offense. Not every slight is a wound. Not every critique is a verdict. Wakefulness is the discipline of seeing reality without the filter of egoic need. It is the courage to sit in the dark night without demanding a premature resolution. 8. Cleanup removal of cope stacks is non-negotiable. Stop litigating to the end. Partial retreat is wisdom. Stop chasing revenge fantasies. They tether you to the very entity you claim to transcend. Do not reproject your unresolved anima onto a new partner before the old psychology is integrated. Avoid bitter misogyny. It is shadow inflation wearing a red-pilled mask. Do not mistake spiritual bypass for healing. Forgiveness is only valid after rage is fully felt and alchemized. Purify your language. Define your terms. Separate duty from desire. Enforce boundaries quietly and ruthlessly. Build financial independence outside the captured system. Master your physical vessel through sleep, lifting, fasting, and cold exposure. Let voluntary suffering forge an iron discipline. Cleanliness is not purity. It is precision. It is the ruthless removal of everything that does not serve the mission. 9. Show up. Sovereignty is demonstrated, not declared. Step into the mature masculine. Order your household like a king. Protect your perimeter like a warrior. Master your craft like a magician. Bind your community like a lover. Integrate them all under logos. Rights are earned after duties are fulfilled. Brotherhood is valued before comfort. Fatherhood is prioritized over bureaucracy. Build more than you consume. Leave inheritance, not excuses. When the institution demands conformity, offer competence. When it demands performance, offer presence. When it demands loyalty, offer truth. The man who shows up does not roar. He acts, he builds, he endures. He becomes the kind of man who does not need the swamp to drain because he has learned to walk on dry ground. The spreadsheet always adds up. The swamp never drains. Choose the spreadsheet. Practice ladder for men. The ladder of ascendant man, a practical path to sovereign integration. Grow up, the foundation of competence and grammar. Step 1. Define your terms. Seize the grammar of your existence. Before a man can think, he must learn to speak. The trivium begins with grammar, the naming of things. Most men live linguistically homeless, using words they never defined, fighting battles over terms they cannot articulate. Today, write down the 10 words that govern your life: freedom, success, manhood, duty, love, justice, strength. honor, truth, God, and define each in one precise sentence. Etymological dictionaries reveal that virtue comes from the Latin ver, man. Discipline comes from disciplina, instruction given to a disciple. When you reclaim the definitions, you reclaim the territory of your own mind. The left thrives on definitional collapse. Problematic means nothing testable. Toxic masculinity is an unfalsifiable accusation. When you demand definitions, you expose the imprisonment of language that substitutes emotional manipulation for rational discourse. Step 2. Test your logic. Hunt your own fallacies. Logic is the sword that cuts through manipulation. Most men accept arguments based on who makes them rather than whether they hold. Today, take one belief you hold strongly. Political, relational, philosophical, and attempt to falsify it. Write down 3 ways you could be wrong. If you cannot imagine how you could be wrong, you are not thinking, you are emoting. Aristotle's Organon teaches that truth is independent of the speaker. A fool can speak truth, a sage can speak folly. The man who judges arguments by their source, rather than their structure, remains at the pre-operational stage of cognitive development, a child in a man's body. Step 3. Move from concrete approval to abstract principle. Kohlberg documented that most adults never reach post-conventional morality. They remain at stage 3, good boy morality, where rightness equals social approval. This is the psychology of the compliant corporate drone. The man who agrees with the diversity seminar not because it's true, but because disagreement is career suicide. Today, identify one action you avoided this week because of what others would think. Now ask, was the action virtuous or merely socially rewarded? The gap between virtue and applause is the exact measure of your moral development. The patriarchal tradition demands that a man serve truth even when the mob howls. Socrates drank hemlock. The apostles were martyred. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius ruled justly while his own generals rebelled. Principle without applause is the forge of post-conventional manhood. Step 4. Build competence in one tangible domain. Maslow's hierarchy is not merely psychological, it is ontological. A man without competence is a man without foundation. The body must be forged before the spirit can soar. Today, choose one physical skill and train it for 30 minutes with total focus. Lift iron, run hills, practice striking. The body is the anchor that holds when the mind storms. The word anchoral lives in this truth, stability against the tide. Wilber's Equal framework reminds us that the upper right quadrant, individual behavior, cannot be neglected for the upper left, consciousness. The man who meditates but cannot change a tire is half developed. The man who deadlifts 500 pounds but cannot name his emotions is equally stunted. Integration demands both. Wake up, the expansion of consciousness and perception. Step 5. Observe your projections. Reclaim the shadow. Jung revealed that what we hate in others is often what we refuse to see in ourselves. The man consumed with hatred for his ex-wife is frequently possessed by his own unintegrated mother complex. The man obsessed with exposing simps may be attacking his own unrecognized neediness. Today, write down 3 traits you despise in others. Now honestly ask, where does this trait live in you? This is not self-hatred. This is shadow retrieval. You cannot integrate what you refuse to see. The medieval moralists called this the daemon within. The Desert Fathers catalogued the logismoi, pride, envy, wrath, sloth, greed, lust, gluttony, not as sins to be suppressed, but as interior forces to be confronted and transmuted. Wrath, properly ordered, becomes righteous indignation. Lust, properly directed, becomes generative love. The man who merely suppresses his darkness becomes a brittle shell. The man who integrates it becomes steel. Step 6. Recognize your developmental position. Spiral dynamics maps the evolution of worldviews. From survival beige to tribal purple to power read to order blue to achievement orange to pluralist green to integral yellow and beyond. Most ideological conflict is developmental mismatch. Today, honestly locate yourself on this spiral. Do you seek survival, belonging, power, order, achievement, approval, integration? The man who knows his position can understand his compulsions. The current crisis of Western civilization is the collision between blue traditional order and green pluralistic relativism. Green's error is assuming all perspectives are equally valid, except the perspectives that disagree with this assumption. This is self-refuting. A syllogism, premise 1, all truth claims are equally valid, the Green assertion. Premise 2, the claim all truth claims are equally valid is itself a truth claim. Premise 3, therefore the claim that this claim is false is equally valid. Conclusion, the original claim self-destructs. This is not rhetoric, this is formal logic. The postmodern position cannot survive its own premises. It is a parasite that feeds on the order it denies. Step 7. Practice silent contemplation. Gebser identified the transition from mental rational consciousness to integral irrational consciousness. The mental structure fragments reality into subject and object. The integral structure perceives wholeness directly. Today, sit in silence for 15 minutes. No phone, no music, no mantra. Simply observe the observer. When thoughts arise, do not fight them, witness them. This is the practice that every contemplative tradition, from the Jesus prayer of orthodoxy to Zen Zazen to the stoic prososh, has prescribed. The modern man is addicted to input. His attention is colonized by algorithms designed to exploit his dopaminergic circuitry. Silence is not withdrawal, it is strategic reconnaissance. You cannot navigate terrain you have never surveyed. Clean up, the integration of darkness and emotion. Step 8. Name your demons. The orthodox tradition of the logismoi and the psychological tradition of shadow work converge. What remains unconscious controls you. What you name, you can confront. Today, write a shadow inventory. List your specific resentments, envies, hatreds, and shames. Do not justify them, do not spiritualize them, simply name them. I resent my brother's success. I envy men with more money. I am ashamed of my divorce. Honesty is the first surgery. Adler taught that inferiority feelings are universal. The question is whether they drive compensation, growth, or retreat, neurosis. The man who admits his inadequacies without collapsing has taken the first step toward genuine superiority, the superiority of the man who has met himself and not flinched. Step 9. Separate your animus from actual women. Freud's Oedipal dynamics and Jung's anima theory. Both reveal the same danger. The man who projects his inner feminine onto external women is doomed to oscillate between worship and hatred. He cannot see women as they are because he is seeing his own unintegrated soul. Today, ask yourself, when I feel desire for a woman, what am I actually seeking? Comfort, validation, the maternal holding I never received, proof of my own worth. Trace the desire to its source. The Helen of Troy fixation, romantic idealization that destroys nations, is the fate of the unintegrated man. Erikson's stage of intimacy versus isolation is not merely about finding a partner. It is about achieving genuine communion, which requires a self mature enough to encounter another self without colonization or fusion. The man who has not achieved identity, Erikson's prior stage, cannot achieve intimacy. He can only achieve dependency or domination. Step 10. Audit your beliefs for consistency. Keegan's self-authoring mind is the developmental milestone where a man shifts from being shaped by his environment to shaping himself. The socialized mind believes what its tribe believes. The self-authoring mind chooses its beliefs based on evidence and principle. Today, list your 5 most important beliefs. Now, for each one, write, I believe this because if the answer is my parents taught me, my church teaches, my peer group believes, or it feels right, you have not yet authored your own worldview. You are wearing borrowed clothes. This does not mean rejecting tradition. It means choosing tradition consciously rather than inheriting it unconsciously. The man who follows his father's faith because he has tested it and found it true is a man. The man who follows it because he never questioned it is a child. Show up, the embodiment of sovereign action. Step 11. Build one thing that outlasts you. Erikson's generativity versus stagnation is the crisis of mature manhood. The boy consumes, the man constructs. The eternal adolescent demands experiences. The mature man creates inheritances. Today, identify one project, physical, intellectual, or relational, that will exist after you die. A business, a book, a well-raised child. A planted tree. a taught skill. Begin work on it today, even if only for 20 minutes. The patriarchal tradition is not oppression, it is transmission. The father gives what he has received to his sons improved. Western civilization is the accumulation of this intergenerational gift. Roman law, Greek philosophy, Christian theology, scientific method, constitutional government. Each generation received, improved, and transmitted. The current assault on patriarchy is an assault on transmission itself, a cultural suicide pact disguised as liberation. Step 12. Serve a cause larger than your comfort Fowler's stages of faith. Move from the intuitive projective, childhood fantasy, to the synthetic conventional, tribal belief, to the individuative, reflective, personal conviction. 2. The conjunctive, humble recognition of mystery. The highest stage is not certainty. It is committed uncertainty in service of truth. Today, perform one act of service that costs you something and benefits someone who cannot repay you, not for karma, not for applause, because this is what men do. The word minister comes from the Latin minister, servant. Christ washed feet. The king serves the kingdom. The modern left has inverted service into narcissism. Activism has become self-congratulatory performance. The man who tweets about justice while ignoring his own children is not serving a cause, he is serving his ego. Genuine service is quiet, costly, and directed toward the real rather than the symbolic. Step 13. Speak truth regardless of reception. The trivium's final stage is rhetoric, the art of persuasive speech. But persuasion is not manipulation. True rhetoric serves truth. Sophistry serves the speaker. Today, say one true thing that costs you social capital. Correct a falsehood in a meeting. Refuse to endorse a fashionable lie. State an uncomfortable fact with charity, but without apology. The current institutional regime depends on men's silence. Every man who refuses to speak the truth out of fear of the problematic label strengthens the apparatus of censorship. The syllogism of submission. Premise 1. I will speak only what is approved. Premise 2. What is approved is determined by those who punish dissent. Premise 3. Therefore, I will speak only what serves power. Conclusion. I have become a slave who calls his silence wisdom. The word witness comes from the Greek matis mater. Testimony has always cost something. The man who speaks truth when it is easy is merely talkative. The man who speaks truth when it costs is a witness. Step 14. Live as an integrated man. The telos of development is wholeness. Wilber's integral vision, Gebser's diaphaneity, Jung's individuation, Kagan's self-transformation, Commons's highest stage of hierarchical complexity all describe the same destination. The man who has unified his fragments into a sovereign whole. Today, review this ladder. Choose one step you have neglected. Do it now, not tomorrow, not when conditions improve. Now, the circumstances will never be perfect. The resistance will never disappear. The man who waits for readiness will wait forever. The ancients understood initiation. The boy must die so the man can be born. This death is not metaphorical. It is the dissolution of the false self, the self constructed by fear, approval-seeking, and unexamined assumption. What remains is the true self, the image of the divine masculine, the logos incarnate in a particular man at a particular time, charged with a particular mission. You are that man. This is your time. The mission is whatever truth demands of you. The kingdom is disordered. The dragon awaits. The law is broken. Your woman, your children, your civilization cry out for protection. What skill will you master? What sacrifice will prove you? What blessing will you return? Thumos under logos, strength in service, mercy after justice, beauty after discipline, rights after duties, brotherhood before comfort, fatherhood before bureaucracy. Build more than you consume. Leave inheritance, not excuses. Begin. I had to wake up from the dream that the system had any interest in my flourishing. Waking up meant seeing the architecture of manipulation, the incentive structures, the language games, the consent manufacturing, and the simple and devastating truth that institutions captured by an ideology hostile to masculine agency will never voluntarily release their hostages. Waking up is epistemic clarity. The moment you stop confusing map for territory when you realize that your perception of reality has been shaped by people who benefit from your confusion. The sharp clarity that comes after the storm of disillusionment passes. You see the terrain for what it is, and you realize you have been walking through a world designed to make you doubt your own eyes. I had to clean up the mess I had made of my own soul. This was the work no one could do for me. The descent into the basement of my own psyche, where I had stuffed every unacceptable impulse. The rage I wouldn't admit. The cowardice I had rationalized. The neediness I had disguised as niceness. The grandiosity that kept me from seeing my own flaws. Cleaning up means facing your shadow, owning your projections, and refusing to let your unexamined wounds drive your decisions. It means stopping the blame game entirely, not because you weren't wronged, but because making victimhood your identity is the ultimate capitulation. You cannot lead others until you have mastered yourself, and you cannot master yourself until you have looked at every ugly thing you have been hiding from. Now I show up, not as a performer seeking applause, not as a supplicant begging for inclusion, but as a man with a mission that exists independently of anyone's approval. Showing up means building more than you consume, protecting those under your care, speaking truth even when your voice shakes, and leaving an inheritance for the men who come after you. It means being a father, a craftsman, a warrior, a judge, and a builder of civilization, not because the culture asked you to, but because the world burns when good men retreat. This is the ladder out of the swamp. Grow up into your full biological and spiritual stature. Wake up to the reality of power and ideology. Clean up the wreckage of your own unresolved nature. And show up as the man your ancestors dreamed you might become. The path is narrow, the cost is real, but the alternative is extinction. Choose life, build. And now, the sponsored book Introduction Behavioral Psychology, Frame, Fortitude, and Extinction of Failure. Buy on Amazon link. https://www.amazon.com Behavioral Psychology, Fortitude, Extinction, Reinvention ebook DP0F4Q2Z349. Modern men face a silent war. Society demands you suppress instincts, apologize for ambition, and surrender power to systems rigged against you. I learned this through loss, a marriage dissolved by courts favoring emotional narratives over facts, years drained by addictions to distraction, and a career stalled by prioritizing others' expectations over my own code. This book exists because weakness is optional. What follows is not self-help. It's a tactical manual for men ready to reclaim sovereignty. You're here because you sense the rot. You felt the sting of being called toxic for enforcing boundaries, watched peers rewarded for compliance over competence, or faced false accusations designed to extort your labor. You've seen men broken by divorce courts, drained by partners who weaponize vulnerability, or trapped in cycles of porn and procrastination. These aren't accidents. They're predictable outcomes of a system that profits from male submission. Biology doesn't care about fairness. Power flows to those who understand its rules. This book is for men who refuse to beg for scraps. If you want hand-holding, platitudes about emotional labor, or permission to blame others, close these pages now, go binge Netflix. The weak won't survive what's coming. For the rest, what you'll learn here rewires behavior at the root. Operant conditioning to erase vices, game theory to outmaneuver divorce traps, stoic drills to crush emotional impulsivity. Biblical archetypes to anchor purpose. These tools rebuilt my life. They'll rebuild yours. Chapters ahead dissect reality without delusion. Fortifying your psychological frame teaches dominance through silent resolve. Divorce proofing through game theory exposes legal prenup pitfalls and how to counter them. Sexual market dynamics reveals why women orbit men who enforce standards, not those who negotiate desire. Each tactic is rooted in behavioral science, evolutionary psychology, and the unvarnished truths of male history. You'll master cold reading social hierarchies, extinguishing toxic behaviors in others through calculated indifference, and leveraging the vigilant fatherhood model to protect legacy. Every principle is actionable. No theory, no filler. Implement them and you'll command respect, secure assets, and render yourself immune to manipulation. Time decides who adapts and who extincts. Your ancestors survived plagues, wars, and famines through sheer will. Their blood runs in you. This book is the catalyst to awaken it. The rest is your choice. Buy on Amazon. Amazon link: https://www.amazon.com. Behavioral Psychology, Fortitude, Extinction, Reinvention, ebook, DP B0F4Q2Z349. Behavioral Psychology, Frame, Fortitude, and Extinction of Failure. Written by Conrad Reicher. Buy now, links in description.